Welcome back to another cooking adventure with Vic. Today is going to be really, really exciting. I just returned from the McAdams farm, but before I tell you about that, let me tell you a little something about this wine that I'm sipping now. Fruity, with some backbone and some acidity. It's a wonderful wine to accompany a tomato sauce dish. It's an Australian wine, a Shiraz, by the Milton Park Winery. Not only is it a good, consistent wine, it's a reasonably priced wine. I love it. With tomato sauce, beef dishes, pasta, pizza. Let me tell you about this trip today. We just returned from the McAdams farm in Eflin, North Carolina, where we make a yearly pilgrimage. This year, we bought the largest number of boxes of tomatoes. Each box is roughly 20 to 30 pounds. Very reasonably priced. They're canning tomatoes. And one box I'm going to be using for making fresh, homemade tomato sauce, which I have featured in another cooking adventure. But the other box, and that's the subject of today's adventure, I'm going to use these tomatoes to make homemade, dry, and wood-fired, smoke-fired tomatoes. Once they're completed, you can freeze them in a freezer bag and they'll keep for over a year. We're still enjoying our dry tomatoes from last year. Why make your own tomatoes when you can buy them commercially? One reason, flavor, and another reason is freshness, and the other reason, no additives. What can you use sun-dried tomatoes for? They're wonderful on pizza, they're wonderful as appetizers, and they make wonderful additions to any tomato sauce. Now that was a lot of hard work. No, not really. It went very quickly. As you can see, the tomatoes are cut in half and they're placed skin side down on grills. Two of these grills will go inside a convection oven and the temperature will be set at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The time it takes for the tomatoes to dry in the convection oven, it varies a lot depending on the moisture content of the tomatoes, but you can certainly count on about 10 hours. So it's best to start them early in the morning, let them run throughout the day, checking them once in a while. And you know when they're done? They're done when they have the texture of dried apricots. You know, that kind of rubbery, still soft, but dry texture. That's what you're looking for. And when they're done, you can place them in freezer bags and keep them for a very long time. Now on this side, these tomatoes will go inside my grill. And I will show you how I'd be able to generate smoke and yet cook at a very, very low temperature of about 200 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, the lowest temperature I can achieve in an outdoor grill. In the meantime, I'm going to put some non-iodized salt, just a sprinkle. And I like to use non-iodized salt because it does not have the bitter aftertaste that regular table salt can have. And I'd like to show you this salt keeper, salt box, that we bought in England a long time ago. You can put salt in it, it doesn't take or dry out, and it's available when you need it. So here we go. Just a little dab here and there. Salt enhances the flavor of tomatoes, and in this case, since I'll be drying them, it helps draw the moisture out as well. So it helps with the drying process as well. See you outside. Welcome back to today's adventure. I'm here to demonstrate my method for low temperature smoking and grilling. And by low temperature, I mean grilling temperatures lower than 300 degrees, preferably closer to 200 for today's purpose, which is fire smoking, drying fresh tomatoes. And what I've done is I've placed a metal box in the bottom of the drip pan on the regular grill. I have fitted this metal box with a ceramic heater. This is the same type of ceramic heater that's used by my Lure Jensen smoker. On top of the ceramic heater, I place a smoking pan, a wood chip pan with wood chips in it. The ceramic heater is electric, hooked up to an electric cord, and the cord is then plugged into a electric supply voltage of 120 volts, which is household current. In about 20 minutes, the wood chips will be smoking. And at that time, I will put in the tomatoes on racks, and I will demonstrate that shortly, and the cooking smoking process will begin. See you in a few minutes. Well, this is where today's adventure gets exciting. I've loaded the tomatoes, been cut in half, lightly salted. One layer goes directly on the grilled surface itself. A second layer is resting on 2 bricks on a separate grid. The wood chips are just beginning to smoke. Oh, what a wonderful aroma that is. I'm going to turn on the fire and keep the temperature with only one burner at about 200 to 250 degrees. They'll be ready in a few hours. Welcome back. We're working on oven-dried tomatoes and fire-roasted tomatoes. The oven-dried tomatoes is spent about 10 hours in a convection oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The fire-roasted tomatoes have spent 3 to 4 hours at about 300 degrees. And here is what we began with. Regular fresh tomatoes cut in half. Notice how thick they are. And this is what we ended up with. They're very thin. This is an oven-dried tomato. This is a fire-roasted tomatoes, and I'll explain very briefly the small differences between the two. But the thing to keep in mind is that, see how flexible the tomato is? It's still somewhat moist. It's not cardboard dry. It has the texture a little more moist than a dried apricot. Now, if you look at the oven-dried tomato compared to the fire-roasted tomato, the oven-dried tomato is slightly lighter, redder in color. The fire-roasted tomato has a slightly darker color because of the smoke. And the other difference is, the fire-roasted tomato has this wonderful aroma of hickory smoke. Both types of tomatoes are just wonderful, either by themselves or as appetizers, or used in ingredients as part of a tomato sauce.